In the eerie depths of the cemetery, mysterious and horrifying events began to unfold. The moon cast an ethereal glow over the tombstones, creating an atmosphere of both anticipation and dread. Young anthropologist Alexandra had embarked on an excavation in this sinister location, delving into a world of fear and the unknown. The night was silent, save for the rustling of leaves in the wind and the distant hoot of an owl. As Alexandra descended further into the heart of the graveyard, her lantern's flickering light created dancing shadows that seemed to breathe with a life of their own. Her steps echoed against the cold stone pathways, reverberating through the stillness. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, as if the very ground beneath her feet held secrets waiting to be unveiled. Ancient tombstones, worn away by time, stood as sentinels guarding forgotten memories and buried nightmares. It was a place where reality blurred with imagination, and fear clung to every nook and cranny. Alexandra's heart raced as she approached the excavation site marked on her map. The ground had already been broken, revealing a crypt that seemed to have been untouched for centuries. The archaeologist's curiosity overpowered her unease, and she gingerly descended the stone steps leading into the darkness below. Torchlight pierced the gloom, revealing intricate carvings on the crypt walls depicting scenes of darkness, death, and creatures that defied imagination. The air was damp and smelled of decay, adding to the surreal experience. Alexandra's pulse quickened as she surveyed the scene, realizing that this was unlike any burial site she had encountered before. As her lantern's glow revealed more of the crypt's interior, Alexandra's eyes widened in awe and trepidation. In the center of the chamber lay an ornate sarcophagus, its surface adorned with symbols and runes that seemed to pulse with a faint, ominous light. She hesitated, a mix of fascination and fear coursing through her veins. Taking a cautious step forward, Alexandra reached out to touch the ancient markings. A chill ran down her spine as a strange energy seemed to surge through her fingertips, as if the very essence of the crypt was awakening in response to her presence. Her breath caught in her throat, and she could almost hear whispers in the shadows, voices long silenced by time. Suddenly, a low rumbling shook the chamber, causing the torches to flicker and cast wild shadows on the walls. The sarcophagus began to tremble, the lid shifting slightly, as if some unseen force were trying to break free from within. Panic surged through Alexandra's veins, and she stumbled back, her lantern falling to the ground and plunging the room into darkness. Heart pounding, Alexandra fumbled for her flashlight, the feeble beam revealing the sarcophagus now partially open. She could feel the air growing colder, and a sense of impending doom hung heavy in the atmosphere. Something ancient and malevolent had been roused, and its presence was suffocating. A whisper seemed to echo through the crypt, a voice both haunting and seductive, filling Alexandra's mind with visions of power and darkness. Her hands trembled as she reached for her bag, searching desperately for something to seal the sarcophagus, to put an end to this unholy awakening. But before she could act, an icy wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing her flashlight and leaving her in total darkness. Time seemed to stretch, the silence broken only by the sound of her ragged breaths. Then, a single point of crimson light appeared in the shadows, an intense burning gaze fixated on Alexandra. Terror rooted her to the spot as the red eyes drew closer, revealing a figure that seemed to materialize from the darkness itself. A vampire, ancient and formidable, stood before her, his presence exuding an aura of malefic power. His voice, a chilling melody, slithered into her mind, promising knowledge beyond comprehension and pleasures beyond imagining. But underlying the seductive tones was an undeniable hunger, a thirst for something darker. Alexandra's mind raced, the realization of the peril she was in crashing over her. The vampire's lips curled into a sinister smile, revealing gleaming fangs that glistened in the dim light. In that moment, she understood that she had awoken not only an ancient evil but a predator that had lain dormant for eons. The crypt seemed to close in around her, the walls pressing in with the weight of centuries-old secrets. As the vampire's presence enveloped her, Alexandra's fear and fascination merged into a chilling realization. The hunt for the living had just begun, and she was its first target. Alexandra's encounter with the enigmatic and alluring stranger left her senses in turmoil. The memory of the vampire's burning gaze haunted her every waking moment, its intensity seared into her mind. As she continued her research, she found herself returning to the crypt, drawn to its dark allure like a moth to a flame. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the cemetery, Alexandra stood before the partially opened sarcophagus. Her heart raced, her mind a battlefield between rationality and the inexplicable pull she felt towards the unknown. She was torn between her curiosity and the unease that gnawed at her from within. And then he appeared, standing amidst the shadows, his figure framed by the moonlight. The vampire's presence was palpable, a magnetic force that seemed to warp reality around him. He stepped forward, his eyes locking onto Alexandra's with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. "You seek answers, Alexandra." His voice echoed in her mind, a seductive whisper that stirred a storm of conflicting emotions within her. "You are drawn to the darkness, to the mysteries that lie beyond the realm of the ordinary." Alexandra's breath caught in her throat. How could he know her name? How could he read her thoughts? She took a cautious step back, her instincts screaming at her to flee, to escape the clutches of this enigmatic predator. But his gaze held her captive, a magnetic force that defied reason. "Do not be afraid, Alexandra," he purred. "I can show you truths that others could only dream of. I can quench your thirst for knowledge, for power." Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. She had always been driven by her thirst for understanding, her desire to uncover the hidden layers of the world. Could this vampire truly offer her the answers she sought? The very idea was preposterous, but her curiosity was a relentless force. As if sensing her inner turmoil, the vampire extended a hand towards her, a silent invitation. Alexandra hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. With a mixture of trepidation and a strange fascination, she placed her hand in his. A shock of electricity coursed through her, a jolt of sensation that was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. In that moment, their connection transcended the physical. Images and emotions flooded Alexandra's mind. Centuries of existence, of a life woven with darkness and bloodlust. She saw cities rise and fall, civilizations crumble into dust. The vampire's memories and desires mingled with her own, blurring the boundaries between them. When the connection finally severed, Alexandra stumbled back, her mind reeling from the intensity of the experience. She found herself on the precipice of a revelation. Vampires were not just monsters. They were complex beings with their own histories, struggles, and desires. The vampire regarded her with a mix of curiosity and amusement, his lips curving into a knowing smile. "You are not as different from us as you may believe, Alexandra. The thirst for knowledge, for power, it is a universal trait, shared by both humans and vampires." His words struck a chord within her. Was it possible that her pursuit of understanding had led her down a path she had never imagined? She had always believed in the separation between the human and the supernatural, but now that line was beginning to blur. Days turned into nights, and Alexandra's interactions with the vampire became more frequent. With each encounter, the barriers she had once erected began to crumble. His charm and the allure of the unknown clouded her judgment, leaving her torn between her humanity and the seductive call of the vampire's world. As their interactions deepened, Alexandra discovered that the vampire's name was Victor. He shared stories of his past, of centuries spent navigating the shadows and sating his insatiable hunger for blood. He spoke of the struggles and the isolation, of the weight of immortality that bore down on him. And yet, even as she listened to his tales, Alexandra could not ignore the darkness that clung to him. She felt the allure of his vampiric nature, the thrill of the forbidden. But with each passing day, she also felt the growing weight of the choices she was making, the knowledge that her own humanity was slipping through her fingers. As Alexandra delved deeper into the shadowy secrets of the vampire world, she uncovered an ancient conflict that had raged for centuries. The vampire clans hungered for power and control, locked in a perpetual struggle for dominance. Each clan had its own ambitions and agendas, a complex web of alliances and rivalries that spanned generations. Caught in the midst of this intricate web, Alexandra found herself torn between her desire for self-preservation and the allure of the eternal night. The lines between right and wrong, human and vampire, began to blur, and the battle for her soul intensified. With each passing day, her heart became a battleground, torn between the seductive pull of the vampire's world and the remnants of her humanity. Victor had become her guide through this world of shadows, revealing its intricacies and dangers. Yet, even as she listened to his tales of survival and desire, Alexandra couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story than he was letting on. The truth of his past remained elusive, concealed beneath layers of charm and mystery. One fateful night, as Alexandra wandered through the moonlit cemetery, she encountered a figure cloaked in darkness. His eyes gleamed with an otherworldly intensity, and his presence exuded an air of authority that demanded respect. It was clear that he was no ordinary vampire. He was a leader, a ruler of one of the most powerful clans. Alexandra, his voice was like silk, wrapping around her senses with a hypnotic allure. You have ventured far into our world, drawn by the whispers of secrets and power. You stand at a crossroads, torn between the pull of the night and the lingering threads of your humanity. His words resonated with her, echoing the battle that raged within her soul. She knew that this encounter was a pivotal moment, a turning point that would shape her destiny. The clan leader extended his hand towards her, a silent invitation to join his ranks, to become a part of a world that promised eternal life and untold power. But as she stared into his eyes, a surge of defiance rose within her. She had witnessed the darker aspects of the vampire world, the insatiable hunger, the ruthless pursuit of dominance. She couldn't ignore the price that came with such power, the sacrifices that had to be made to survive in a world that thrived on bloodshed. "I won't be a pawn in your games." Alexandra's voice quivered with a mixture of fear and determination. "I won't sacrifice my humanity for power and control." The clan leader's smile was both chilling and amused. "You underestimate the allure of the night, Alexandra. The thirst for power runs deep in every being, whether human or vampire. You will find that your convictions will waver as the darkness beckons." As he spoke, Alexandra felt a surge of anger and frustration. She refused to believe that she was destined to succumb to the very darkness she had sought to uncover. She had witnessed the consequences of unchecked power, and she was determined to forge her own path. With a defiant glare, she turned away from the clan leader and walked into the shadows. Her journey was far from over, and the choices she made would determine not only her own fate, but the fate of both human and vampire alike. The echoes of the ancient conflict reverberated through her mind, and she knew that her decisions would have far-reaching consequences. As Alexandra navigated the treacherous path ahead, she couldn't escape the truth that had become painfully clear. Vampires were not the only predators in this story. The struggle for power, control, and survival extended beyond their ranks, encompassing the entire world around her. And in this dance with the darkness, Alexandra was forced to confront her own desires and the limits of her humanity. The impending final battle cast a shadow over the horizon, and Alexandra found herself facing a truth she could no longer ignore. The ancient conflict between vampire clans was spiraling toward a climax, threatening to plunge the world into eternal darkness. As the lines between allies and enemies blurred, Alexandra realized that she had to unite her forces with those she once deemed adversaries to combat the looming vampire threat. With her heart heavy and her resolve firm, Alexandra sought out the very clan leader she had defied. She was met with a mixture of skepticism and begrudging respect, for her determination had earned her a certain degree of recognition. The clan leader explained that the impending threat went beyond power struggles. It was a force that even vampires feared. "Darkness stirs, Alexandra." The clan leader's voice was somber. "A being older and more malevolent than any vampire has awakened. Its power threatens to consume not only our kind but the entire world." As Alexandra listened, a chill ran down her spine. The scope of the danger was beyond anything she had imagined. The vampire clans, once entangled in their own conflicts, were now forced to put aside their differences to face a common enemy. Alexandra's role in this battle was pivotal, her unique perspective and insight into the human world, making her a bridge between two worlds. With the threads of alliance and necessity woven together, preparations for the final confrontation began. As Alexandra observed the unity among the clans, she realized that she was witnessing a fragile truce, one that might shatter the moment the common threat was eradicated. The vampires were creatures of darkness, their very existence a contradiction to the light. and yet they were willing to embrace it in the face of annihilation. The battlefield was chosen, a desolate wasteland that seemed to mirror the uncertainty of the impending clash. Alexandra stood among the ranks of both vampires and humans, a symbol of the delicate balance that had been achieved. As the opposing forces assembled, tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. The battle began with a fierce intensity, the clash of swords and the crackle of magic echoing across the wasteland. Alexandra fought with a fervor she hadn't known she possessed, her determination fueled by the knowledge that the outcome would determine the fate of both worlds. She was no longer just an observer or a scholar. She was a warrior, fighting for the survival of everything she held dear. Amidst the chaos, Alexandra found herself face to face with Victor. The vampire's eyes burned with a mixture of determination and something deeper, a vulnerability that caught her off guard. In that moment, the boundaries between them dissolved, and for the first time, Alexandra saw the complex emotions that churned beneath Victor's veneer of confidence. Alexandra, he spoke her name with a rare sincerity, his voice carrying a weight of unspoken regrets. This battle has shown me that there is more to our existence than power and survival. You have shown me the value of what it means to be human. As they stood amidst the turmoil, time seemed to slow. Alexandra saw the centuries of struggle etched into Victor's eyes, the weight of choices made and consequences faced. She realized that he, too, was a product of the world he had been thrust into, a world that was far more nuanced than she had initially believed. In a moment that defied the chaos around them, Victor leaned in, his lips brushing against Alexandra's. It was a kiss that held the weight of their shared experiences, a connection that transcended the boundaries of light and darkness. In that instant, Alexandra understood that the choices she made in this battle would not only determine the outcome, but would also shape the path she walked. The battle raged on, and Alexandra fought with a renewed determination, fueled by the realization that her choices would define her destiny. The boundaries between light and darkness, human and vampire, continued to blur, revealing the complexities of a world shaped by centuries of conflict and desires. As the final clash approached, the air crackled with an otherworldly energy. The outcome remained uncertain, the balance between light and darkness hanging in the balance. And as the clash of forces reached its crescendo, Alexandra knew that her fate was inextricably intertwined with the secrets of the ages-old struggle between good and evil, to be continued.